Let me just state for the record that the only reason I watched this movie was because it got 13 nominations to the Academy Awards, and wouldn't have watched it otherwise, and would probably be happier. Spoilers ahead. Emilia Perez is what happens when someone who has never seen a telenovela watches one for the first time. Yeah, the first time is somewhat interesting, you kinda like the twists and turns, and it makes you overlook its flaws. In this case, the premise is very interesting actually. I like not knowing anything about a movie before I go and see it, so I just knew people hated it. I didn't know why. Therefore, my expectations were none. A drug lord transitioning sounds like a wild idea, and it's interestingly executed to some degree. I have a question. Why is this a musical when no one in the movie can sing or does it well here? Well, perhaps Selena Gomez can sing, but not in Spanish, and her Spanish really sucks. More on that later. The songs sound like a Google translation of a song written in another language. It doesn't feel natural. It feels AI. I'm not saying it's AI, I'm saying it sounds like AI, which actually makes it worse. The acting ranges from mediocre to bad, with some sparks of decent acting, just like a telenovela. Just Google a random narco telenovela, watch a couple of episodes, and you'll know what I mean. And to my surprise, since I of course googled the actors, Karla Sofia Gascon acted on a narco telenovela years ago. It's just the kind of acting I would expect for a production like that, but let's not pretend that a decent delivery is the same as a carefully crafted character that experiences complex emotions, and all of that is perfectly communicated through the performance. I hate to draw comparisons, but another contender in this season of the Academy Awards is Anora, and Mikey Madison is the perfect example on how to deliver complex characters full of emotions. Selena Gomez is just painful to watch. I don't hate Selena. I grew up watching her on Disney Channel and had a crush on her when I was like 10, but I'm afraid she cannot speak Spanish at any discernible level. And this robotic Google translated script didn't help either. It makes her sound unnatural and just odd. This commentary isn't a personal attack on the actors, by the way, which I'm sure worked hard on this, but sometimes working hard doesn't necessarily yield the results that you expected. Saldana is the only salvageable character, somewhat. Her Spanish sounds like Spanish, at least, although her accent is totally not Mexican. They tried to justify it with a line in the script, and fine. It's a cheap way of explaining stuff, but I can overlook it. She doesn't have the pipes for a musical, and again, if she does, it comes down to that awful mistranslated dialogue. It sounds silly and takes the viewer away from the situation. To put it bluntly, this film was poorly cast. The cinematography, I don't know why it's getting so much praise. It just looks like one of the higher budget telenovelas or like a Netflix production such as The Kissing Booth, for example. Basic lighting, basic framing with no regard for visual storytelling aside from a few memorable shots. Of course, every movie has a few memorable shots, or most movies do. Now for the million-dollar question, why did this film get so many nominations? And my answer to that is I have no freaking clue. I mean, someone could say, if the Academy says it's good, then it's probably because it's good, right? And to that, I would say, mostly, the majority of Academy nominated films are usually good or have an aspect of it that makes it interesting or pop out or maybe worth watching. That's what baffles me here. The only thing I can come up with is that the viewers were peer pressured into thinking it's good. Or since they don't speak Spanish, they didn't mind the glaring incoherence of hearing Colombian, Dominican, and fake Mexican accents all mushed up and being passed as Mexican people. Not to mention the quasi-glorification of drug cartel lords in a way that sort of makes it so that it excuses all of the atrocities that the leader of that cartel did, just because it was her old self and she created a semi-real organization that helped find the bodies of the missing victims that were her responsibility. Changing your whole identity doesn't excuse the crimes that you committed. I'm sorry. And Mexican families who have had to deal with these issues firsthand might see this film differently than a French director who hired big names to make a poorly translated film. There is no universe in which this film could rank in the top 11 films of 2024. Not a chance. It doesn't propose anything new, visually, technically, or argument wise. It's simply a telenovela made into a movie and praised as a masterpiece. Maybe this praise comes from critics not seeing a narco novela before. Since Karla Gascon got a nomination for Best Actress, then every single lead actress in a telenovela has a shot at an Oscar. The director did an okay job. Again, he didn't bring anything new to the table, unless you call directing a musical in Spanish with actors who can barely speak Spanish, let alone sing it, a breakthrough. The song that was nominated is so poorly translated it hurts my ears just to listen to it. The score is meh. It doesn't create a unique ambience to the film like Zimmer usually does or Ludwig in Oppenheimer did. It honestly sounds like a royalty-free library for most of the film, and that's for sound design. The fact that this thing is nominated for Best Sound is crazy. I don't know if they're trying to recognize the engineers for having to put on all the extra work with all that ADR that had to be done, or something like that, I don't know. But still, those ADRs are incredibly noticeable and feel rushed and poorly finished. You can literally hear when the ADR starts and where the dialogue recorded in the studio or in the set begins. It's so bad. And I could go on and on for every single category, except perhaps Zoe Saldana, who probably needed a lot of rest after carrying this movie for 2 whole hours. And I'm not saying she was the best actress in the world, I'm simply saying that she's the only salvageable point of this film, and that's not saying a lot. And again, I'm not attacking the people who made this film. It has an audience, probably, and it didn't make me want to jump off a building for the whole film, just most of it. But this is like when I was in high school and someone made a truly awesome science project, something new, honestly cool, but someone else just designed a new version of a recycling bin that was heavily inspired by an already existing design, and they win the science fair because recycling is important. Recycling is important, but innovation needs space. The fact that movies such as Emilia Perez get such praise and validation from not just the Academy but other award ceremonies hurts filmmakers who are honestly trying to breathe some air into this beautiful art form. Did the people who work on Emilia Perez work hard? Sure. Did the people who worked on The Avengers work hard? I'm pretty sure they did as well. But The Avengers, as fun to watch as it can be, is what Scorsese once referred to as a theme park ride movie. But this kind of award was meant to lift up truly remarkable films. Films that pushed the boundaries of cinema and inspired future filmmakers from around the world. And it didn't matter who made them. And unfortunately, the only remarkable thing about Emilia Perez is how unremarkable it is. As always, thank you for watching. See you next time.